So welcome, and today I'm going to be talking about a topic that has been something that has been experienced by me in my coaching and in my life personally. And I've encountered the family, our inherited past, having a huge impact on our current existence. So before I begin on this topic, I'd like us to just tune in. I want the most benefit from all of us on the call because you made this time, and I want this time to have a profound impact on your journey into self-discovery. So we set a strong intention from the universe, from the energy of the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, to be with us in our path of recognizing the conscious awareness that we are. So I'm going to just ring this bell 3 times so that it tunes into our heart center, activates our heart chakra, which is so focus your energy on your heart center and just allow the bell to tune into your heart center. You can keep your eyes open or your eyes closed, whatever you feel comfortable. And follow the sound of the bell back to the stillness and feel the stillness inside of your heart, activating the memories and the energies inside your heart center. Let your breath flow. Calm the noise in your mind. Bring your awareness into your body, into your intuition, into your heart. Tune into your heart and follow the bell all the way back to the stillness, and then we can begin. All right, so we can return back to the present moment and tune in with your heart. The information I'm going to share with you is not information, is wisdom that I have been very fortunate to inherit from a divine sense within me. And it's not something that I learned in books, but it's something that books are now confirming to me. So there was a man that I posted a video about who wrote about this topic, Mark Wallin, and he talks about how it didn't start with you and how family traumas or things that we inherit started from before. Now, we can call it, as the Hindus do, karma. You can call it the cycle of life. You can call it genetic past. You can call it whatever you like. There is evidence that our ancestry and our genetics has an impact on our emotions. So we know about physical. The doctors have confirmed that if you've got heart disease in your family, there's a strong chance you could get it. We know that if you have cancers or ailments of a physical nature, there's a strong chance that you could get that because you are the genetic composition of your ancestors. And if you look way back, we are the genetic material of life. If you think about the air that we're breathing in, when we breathe in, it's the same air that the dinosaurs that are now extinct exhaled. Everything that we see in the air around us is being recycled. All the genetics, all the life elements, all these things now, the scientists will term it as atoms and all these strange names that we call them because we love terms. We live in a world of terms. But in essence, everything in existence from the beginning of time, whenever time existed or didn't exist, has been passed down to us. So there's a lot of greats that has come down to us. And part of our genetic superiority which nobody talks about in this world, obsessed over bacteria and over viruses, which we have a specific reason to be concerned about. But there's more to it that we have to be aware of, that we've inherited, good and bad. Like, for instance, if you hear from Dr. Zach Bush, our biology is composed of a thing called a virome. A virome is our viral genetic blueprint. So we have, I think, 6 to the power of 45, some ridiculous amount like that, of virus codes within our genetics, which means that we have the reference material and the information and signatures of viruses, bacteria, and every pathogen you can think of within our DNA. You can call it DNA. So we are composed of this genetic material. I'm giving you a broad spectrum so that you know from a virus perspective, you know from a cellular perspective, you know from a physiological perspective, in our cells, in our tissues, in our molecules, in our DNA, right? All these things are composed of there. The oxygen that we have is within us. And there's some speculation, because nobody's been there from the beginning of time to now to confirm this, that we actually came from stars. There's a theory that before the earth was created, that we came from, we meaning the essence of what we are, what we're composed of. It looks like we're just a solid mass of human skin and bones. But within this, in this essence of it, there's a lot more. Now, if you look at family issues that we've got, people who are in successful families were more likely proven by statistics to be successful in their lives. People who have come from a poor family are more likely to be poor when they grow up, right? These are all very stereotypical things. But there is this continuation. People that have had traumas in their lives, and now they said, a new study done by a psychological magazine, that people that come from divorced homes are 3 times more likely to be divorced in their lives, right? Now, why are we saying all of this? Because we want to be nasty and mean and give ourselves a bad footing in life? No, it's to give us the edge in life. We say, okay, we're composed of all these different things. Now we have the genetic testing looking at your genome, right? Looking at what particular strands in your DNA and whether they turned on or turn off. Your genetic expression will then determine a specific physical attribute, right? So if you have a gene that is more sensitive to carbohydrates and you have a low predisposition to insulin sensitivity, then you're more likely to get diabetes, which is an epidemic much bigger than the coronavirus, by the way. Heart disease and diabetes, coronavirus has got no chance next to. Yet, we don't care about that. Nobody's saying, let's ban refined sugars. We're not saying, let's ban all these things that have known to be causing all these types of genetic problems within us. So let's get on to the topic of emotions and how our emotions are inherited. So my journey started out when a very wise old man who is a sort of a guru to me and my mentor, he said to me, Rashad, do you know anger can be passed down to generations? And I looked at it and I went, what's this guy talking about, right? How can you pass anger down? Anger is not in our genetic code, anger, being angry. But it's possible, right? So nothing's impossible. We live in a universe that anything is possible and impossible. So how is this possible? And then we start looking at different genetic traits that are possibly passed down. Now, we're not talking about karma in the sense of, okay, you were a bad person, you're going to come back and be, a cockroach or whatever else that may mean in the way that may be interpreted and misunderstood as well. But I'm talking about how we inherit certain qualities. Now, it all was a hypothesis to me. It was all a concept in the air. Then we had the field of epigenetics, which Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about, how your thoughts and emotions can actually turn on and turn off different genetic markers. In other words, you have a predisposition to diabetes, right? Because of your genetic markers. You can change that through epigenetics. Epigenetics is the study of how emotions and mindset actually affect our physiology. So can the way we think affect our organs and make our pancreas produce more insulin or become more sensitive to insulin? And the answer is yes. And that's mind-blowing, right? Coming from a cellular biologist, Dr. Bruce Lipton. So there is a correlation between emotions and our predisposition as well. Does it make sense, guys? So now, if we take this a little further and we talk about my life, right? So my life, with my upbringing, Zara, you're my cousin, so your father and my father were brothers, so you can relate to this. There's a certain kind of patterns that I started seeing, and it was all revealed in one important question that I asked myself. In fact, what my coach asked me, Rashad, what's your greatest fear? And the question I'd like to pose to all of you today, what is your greatest fear? Because in your greatest fear hides the answer to what you've inherited, right? I'm going to go talk more about that. So I went to see, this is like rewinding my whole life and fast forwarding it to this point when a dream was revealed to me through my father, which I'm going to share with you today, which I have never shared on the screen before. But it's very important for me to share that. So all of this has been given to me as an intuition, as a, I don't know, you can call it a download or whatever these terms that you want to use. But I have been given something from our ancestors. Is it one fear specifically or a number of fears? Good question, Anissa. Prioritize them. Take 1, 2, 3. So I'll tell you my 3 greatest fears. The fear of dying poor. The fear of ending up sick, right? The third greatest fear would be the fear of dying, right? So those are my 3 great fears. If I had to be honest and reflect deeply within myself. You go ahead and write your 3 greatest fears down, and they're for you to share alone. And then I started asking all my clients this as well. So here's an incident that happened. I have a great friend who's a homeopath. Is this very senior homeopath with many years of experience. And my family has been going to him for years now. Every time I go to him, when I was, 10 or 20 years ago, I'd say, Doctor, he's a homeopath. So he's very much in tune with our entire composition. Our composition is our predisposition to a specific. It's called the miasma in the Latin terms. Is that what are you composed of? So I said to him, every time I go to you and I tell you I got this problem, you always just look at me like, go get me something serious. And I laughed with him once and I said, Doctor, the only time you take me seriously if I came with my kidney in one hand and my liver in the other and said I've got a problem, now will you take me seriously? Because every time I go to you, I said the blood test says this, you just laugh in my face. So I said to Dr. Lizanne, you can relate to that because you come from the same stardust. Yeah. Okay, I like that. I'm no longer that. So then I said to my doctor, like, what's wrong with you? Like, take me seriously. What do you think? I'm some kind of joke? I got a problem, right? So growing up in Australia, right, with this medical system, Andrea, you can probably relate to this, and everyone in the Western countries, you go into the doctor and you say, I've got this condition, and they say, oh, what do you think it is, doctor? Oh, well, I can't tell you. We need to do further blood tests. And they do a further blood test, and they come back and go, can you give me some conclusive evidence that I'm okay? And they go, no, because I can't. Because why? Because they're afraid of being sued. Now, my homeopath is like, so my homeopath says to me, look, you're fine. Go ahead. Like, just shut up and leave. Now, that, offended me at first. But then I said to him, look, he's very annoying. He doesn't give you a straight answer because I want a straight answer. He said, Rashad, before I answer that question, tell me something. When you were young and you got a little sick, how did your parents react to you? Did they say, go ahead, son, you'll be okay? Or did they go, what is it? Let's check it out. I said, no, they were definitely the second type. Were they the worrying type? Or did they just let it go? I said, no, they were the worrying type because I remember them struggling with issues with their health and constantly getting checks and all the rest of it. He said, well, that's the way you are. That's why you are the way you are. It's because you've inherited that, watching them as a child, seeing how they behave towards certain types of things. You inherited that. And I was like, oh. So that was another clue to me. Okay, there's something going on here. Then I would notice how I would enter into business relationships. And every time I would go into a business relationship, something would break down. And I would end up having a fight with the guy who was in the business, and I'd lose money and get angry and I want to kill that person. It's mostly guys, not many women, because it's a male-dominated world in the business sense. So it was then, and it's changing now. So I would see these repeating patterns. Every time I would go into business, there would be someone who would always start out great, and I'd make sure that I never find the same idiot that bothered me in the past. So I'd make sure I check this guy out. Look, is he honest? Does he have good credentials? He turned out to be the same guy again. I'm like, what's going on here? Like, what kind of karma, I call it karma or whatever you want to call it, that I'm attracting the same kind of people over and over again. And then I said, hold on a second here. And then I started reflecting on this after so many. And this is something that I found in my coaching. I'd say a guy would tell to me, I've been in the work environment, and every time I'd get a bad boss, he'd make sure it's a good boss, and he ends up being a prick. Like, how did you do that, right? Are you creating it, or are they all just pricks, right? Excuse the language here, but it's not a rude word as such. Prick is something that you poke something with. Yeah. So what, Denise is laughing. So either way, is it the conditions we are creating? I'm getting there, Lisa. Hold on. So are we creating it, or is it creating us? Great question, right? So now I look at these patterns in people in relationships. Yeah, that's true from the age of 7, but I'm even talking before the age of 7, Fatima. Good point, right? So now I look at it and I say, okay, well, why is it that people that are in relationships end up leaving the guy who ended up being an absolute prick and then marrying another prick, right? And it's the same with the woman. She seemed like such a lovely person, and she was nothing like my ex-wife, and she's exactly the same as my ex-wife, right? So then you start recognizing these patterns, and then you see a relationship between the mom and the dad and the siblings and all the rest of it. But then I started seeing these other correlations with suicide as well. So people that come from families that has experienced suicide or have suicidal thoughts end up having ancestors or parents that did take their lives or did consider taking their lives. And the other thing was abuse that I found commonly. And of course, abuse is predominantly in women because men are pricks, like I said. So they would find the same kind of thing where women that came from abused families ended up marrying husbands that would abuse them. Now, it all sounds very, dark and miserable, and are we like predestined about, this horrible encounter? So I took a pause and I said, what am I doing to contribute to this life that I'm creating? Now, the other thing was, there was a link between the physiological condition, heart disease, diabetes, specific organ cancers. So there's a correlation between physical ailments and an overall sense of emotional well-being. And now it could be, well, you're just putting facts randomly together. No, it was Louise Hayes and a few others that were not funded by the modern day pharmaceutical companies that came up with the same thing. So you'd find lung cancer, lung disorders had to do with depression and anxiety within the lungs. Now here's the thing, pancreatic issues, sugar, insulin. The pancreas produces insulin, which neutralizes sugar. So you'd say that person is very sweet. In fact, it's the opposite of it. People that have bitterness in their lives and an emotional side end up experiencing, and I'm not saying across the board because any doctor would find inconclusive evidence in my theory, but this is in my own practice. And you look at heart disease with the heart, the lack of joy, because the heart is the organ of joy. You find the legs, people with issues to do with their knees and their legs, they don't know which way they're going in life. You find people with issues with hips, they feel like they're being pushed around everywhere and they don't have any direction. You find people with shoulder problems, right shoulder problem, having issues with male people in their lives, fathers, brothers, all the rest of it. The left side of their body having to do with female. Shoulders meaning representing the carrying the weight of life. And I'm talking about, this is all my personal experience and then from my clients as well. I had a huge lump on my back like that big, a huge abscess that would not go away. It was massive and it was growing and I couldn't keep my back straight. I could not. I would have to walk like this all the time. And when I first encountered my coach and I said to him, it feels like I'm carrying 2 tons of emotions with me. I didn't realize the significance of my statement back then. But whose weight was I carrying? And why was I carrying it? And then it hit me. It's not even my emotions that I'm carrying. And so he said to me, drop the load. And I said, are you mad? I've been carrying this thing all my life. I can just drop the load. You think it's that easy? He said, just drop the load. I said, it's not that easy. Right? It's unconscious. Of course it's not conscious, right? Because if it was conscious, we'd be able to say, oh, well, what's in this load? Let me go drop it off here. It was unconscious. And then through a process of healing within myself, which I've done with every single thing in my body, and it's worked really well, is that I healed this massive abscess by letting go through a process of love and compassion and actually talking to it. And one day, it started hurting even more as I was doing more work, and it started getting more red and even bigger. And the doctor said to me, you're going to have to operate on that. And I said, no, this is coming because of the work that I'm doing. I'm going to keep on loving it, even though it was excruciating. And then I said to my wife, I went to take a hot shower, and I said to my wife, I want you to press it on each side. And she says, what do you mean? I said, I couldn't even touch it. Why are you asking me to press it? I just said, something's telling me to press it. And she pressed it. This is the part where you may want to, if you're eating your lunch, you may have to turn. Come on, Andrea, you're a coach. You can hear this stuff, Andrea. So she squeezed, and then she yelled out, and I said, what happened? She said, the whole thing popped out. The whole thing from the inside, whatever was there, including all the surroundings, popped out. I won't say where it hit her, but she'll forgive me for that. It hasn't come back since then, right? So what was that? It was the combination of all these things that were festering inside of me. And you look at all the diseases in our organs and in our lives and in our veins and in our arteries and in our cellular composition. It was all the emotional work that I was doing. Now, you may say, well, that's all fine, but you don't have conclusive evidence that it works for everything. No, it doesn't. You can look up Louise Hayes, Miriam Ali. You can go check Louise Hayes out, and she'll give you a correlation between each organ and the emotional attachment to it. So some of it may feel like hit and miss, but some of it is not. Either way, let me pause there for a second, because I want to get into the second part about it, which gets even more exciting. But I'd like to hear your thoughts. Ask any questions. Sometimes, you see, when it's expressed physically, then we all can recognize it. I've got a shoulder problem, knee problem, pancreas, cancer, heart disease. But I'm saying, let's get one step ahead of it and say, okay, let's not worry about the aches and pains, which are, of course, they bother us, and we'll talk about that. But I'm saying, how do we live a life of fulfillment, of nourishment, of wholeness, of overcoming the past? Now, I'm going to come to you to answer all your questions. Let me move on to say what I want to highlight is that why am I, there's a question as I was asking myself, why am I being taught this stuff? Taught meaning I'm not the one teaching, I'm being taught that. And why am I helping people? Because I've discovered the whole process on how to heal the traumas and the things that you don't want. It's not just all traumas, by the way. We're not talking about just trauma here. We're talking about things that are blocking us. Why can't I be successful in business? Why can't I be successful in relationships? Why do I keep on attracting the same ailments over and over again? Why do I feel the same way every day? Why do I feel stuck at this particular points in my life? And the whole thing was that it didn't start with you. So if you can recognize the patterns, then you have an ability to bring it to awareness. So the process of healing and of overcoming is the following, in simple terms. Become aware of the issues that you want to overcome, whether they're emotional, whether they're physical, whether they're whatever else that they are. For instance, I can never succeed in my life. Now, why can't you succeed? What's the definition of success? Who in your life has succeeded? Who in your life hasn't succeeded? What about your mom and dad? What about their moms and dads? Okay, what is success to you? Have you had any issues with success? And then I picked up certain patterns. Someone's mic is off. Please mute your mic. Bring awareness to why I can't make money, because the things that we want. Why can't I find love? Why can't I overcome my weight issues? Why can't I overcome my health issues? Why can't I overcome my anxiety? My feeling of depression all the time. Guilt. I'm feeling guilty. Women have this all the time, more than men. They're sitting around enjoying my wife said to me, Hamima, your sister, said to me, you know what, I slept in today. And you know what, I realized that's okay too. And I'm like, yeah, it is. I don't have a problem with it. She's like, yeah, I shouldn't have a problem with it. She's almost trying to convince herself. But who created that? Did she create that? The feeling of, feeling guilty because she stepped in on a Saturday morning when every Monday to Friday she's up early taking the kids to school. Where did it come from? Grief, sadness, and these inherited things. So there was one of my clients who was progressing very quickly towards suicide. Very, very rapidly towards suicide. Another client was progressing very rapidly towards cancer. Another client was rapidly progressing towards divorce. And another one was about to abuse his wife and he didn't even know why. Now, I came about and said, hold on a second here. Why are you doing this? And tell me about the past. And when I lay the patterns onto them after the question, it's all in the questioning. And you really can't do this work by yourself. And I'm not trying to say, okay, you need a coach like me, but you need someone who has the intuition to link. And Lizanne, Anissa, a few of you others, Zahira, who have been on journeys with me to see the patterns, identify them, because your ego mind keeps you trapped within that. It's this weird thing that it doesn't want you to overcome it. It wants you to keep on feeling this way. So you can't do this work and identify it yourself. The identification is key. Once you've identified it, the work is easy, right? Bring awareness to it. Approach your ancestors and your past with love and compassion. Love and compassion. Impossible for me to identify yourself. Exactly, because listen, nobody wants to wake up in the morning feeling guilty. Nobody wants to wake up in the morning feeling like shit. Nobody wants to wake up in the morning feeling that they can't lose weight, achieve success. Nobody specifically wants to do that, right? But there's something within us that's stopping us from achieving these things. Now you inquire your mind and you go, why can't I be successful? Now what do? You got to get a book on success. All right, well, tomorrow I have to wake up at 4 a.m., do 20 push-ups and then, 3 breathing meditations. And then I'll be successful. No, it doesn't work like that. These are inherited within your body and you have to recognize the patterns. So once you bring your awareness and identify these patterns and bring them with love and compassion, if you approach your past with hostility, you will get smashed. Okay? This is tricky work. This is work that requires the bringing in or the calling in of love and compassion and the divine light within it. It's not done through, it was my dad's fault, it was my grandma's fault. If you blame anyone or anything, including your ex, your disease, your situation, your poverty, your fat, your skinniness, your whatever, it's going to stop you. The only thing that works is that you open your heart up and say, love, I want to love more. I want more joy. I want to feel the spark of life. You approach it with this kind compassionateness, knowing that nobody and nothing is to blame. Get rid of the blame. It's an empowered feeling. You're saying, I feel empowered. And if the universe allows me to, by requesting the presence of the universe through love, the universe, God, the energy forms, whatever you want to call it, that is your access. You go into that and you say, I want to overcome this feeling of feeling guilty. Now, who felt guilty? It so happens that you have a situation where it could have been, and it was one of the clients that spoke to me about this, when their grandmother ended up having an abortion, right? Because of circumstances, not because of they wanted to. But now the mother's having a baby and she's feeling guilty about abandoning her child. And it's consuming her to the point where she can't eat, she can't sleep. But I'm saying, you're there with the child. Where did this come from? So many of these things, those noises in our heads, and if you're brave enough to sit with those noises in the head, which don't want you to interpret these noises, those noises want to control your life. When you sit there, when you sit with those noises, and we can do that in a group session because it takes courage to sit with those noises in your head and listen to the repeating patterns. Let me give you a little tip on how to do that. Rewind. Say you had 3 thoughts. Sit, have a shower. Towards the end of the shower, Think about what you thought about and say, thought about this and thought about that and thought about that. You'll find if you don't have practice, you won't even remember what you thought. You'll be like, I can't remember what I thought. If you start working on this, you'll start recognizing that you're thinking about the same shit over and over again. And it may be shit, it may be useful, but generally we don't think about useful things. When our minds are idle, most of us don't wake up in the morning saying, I wonder what miracles and magic await us today, as I've taught you guys to do. Most of us are going, oh shit, what am I going to have to encounter today? Why can't I get over my, I got this belly fat, and I've got this, I can't make enough money because I have to pay my bills and whatever else we consume about. Maybe I'm talking about myself, but whatever else that is, right? So all these things that haunt us, you have to go into that noise with love and compassion and go, oh, you're afraid of being poor. Oh, okay, bring it here in front. Poor. Why are you afraid of being poor? Are you poor right now? Do you have food on the table? Now, be careful because you don't do the whole feeling unworthy thing. You know what? I should be more grateful. Look at me. There's other people in Africa that don't have enough food in their mouth, and you're complaining about your house, and some people don't have a roof over their head. That's what we do as parents, right? As parents. What's wrong with you? You're in a perfectly good school and you got food to eat. You should be more grateful. When I was young, we used to walk 40 miles to get to the school, and, we had to spend our lunch money and carry that for a month. All that kind of shit doesn't help, okay? That's the guilt trip that we all inherited. And we apply that to ourselves. We apply that to ourselves. We look in the mirror and we go, what's wrong with you? Being stupid. You're being silly. You got no problems. You do. Your problem is you're applying the wrong technique. And I didn't get this for ages. So with my clients, as I did in the beginning, not in the beginning, but before I was a coach, I'd be like, well, there's your problem. You're ungrateful. You got everything. Look at you. And my friend would say to me, Rashad, you're so right, man. I'm such an idiot, Then I'd tell him about my problems. Say, well, you think you got problems? Look at me. I got this problem and this bigger problem. And he's like, and then I'll tell him about this other person. What is the right technique? Don't you want to know, Miss Problem Solver, Lisa? I'm not giving it to you that easily. So then, you recognize these patterns. So the correct technique is to approach it with love and compassion and say, all right, I'm feeling like a victim. I'm feeling like I'm unworthy, but hold on, it's nothing to blame because I don't know why I'm feeling like this. And yes, the people in Rwanda are dying. I hope the people of Rwanda don't get offended, but I know Rwanda generally, food is scarce. Yes, they are going through what they're going through, but this is not what I want to work on. So through love and compassion, go and recognize the thought patterns. Was your dad successful we use the example of business, money. Were there extra money in the house? Was he tight about money? Your dad, your mom. How did your mom feel about money? Love. Did she treat you with love? Did she treat you with kid gloves? Did she treat you brutally? How did she raise you? Right? And how was she raised? Right? So all these kind of patterns will start disclosing for you. Now, it's an entire course that I implement with my clients to help them overcome this. And I will in future videos to show you more how this is done systematically. But first, it requires a conversation into the issues that you're dealing with. And listen, if you don't deal with this stuff and you don't deal with these issues, you're still complete and whole. You don't have to do this stuff. So don't get the impression that I'm broken goods and all the rest of it. That's also a swindle as well. It's not an upsell to give you a problem and then help you to find the solution. That's not what I'm saying at all. The way you are is perfectly fine right now. And that's the other half of my coaching, is acknowledging the way you are right now and feeling content that I am the way that I am because this is working in my favor. What I identified is that those issues that are stopping you from achieving your greatest ambitions are exactly what is protecting you. I'll repeat that. Those same issues that you're trying to overcome may not need to be overcome right now because they're protecting you. Because there's this wisdom, there's this love and this compassion in the universe. Let me give you an example. For instance, if you feel that you have no fear and you can do whatever you want, say for me as a man, and I'll be like, you know what, this family, I don't need this family. I don't need love. Overcome love. I don't need love in my life, even though you may have a predisposition to feel that I need a family and I need love. And I have almost a sadness of losing my loved ones, right? And you think, I want to get rid of this. No, because it's serving you. Because if you didn't have this feeling in you, you may just pack up and go. which would destroy a family, for instance. Sometimes if you're in a terrible relationship, then you must leave. Okay? But there's wisdom. If you have a body ache and you have an ailment, that wisdom in that thing is keeping you there. The pain stops you from overexerting yourself. When you have an emotional trauma or pain, it stops you from going into another relationship that's going to cause you more pain. So that is a protection mechanism for you. So your pain, your traumas, your ailments are not bad things. Life is not a problem to be solved. This is the modern day thinking. You got a problem, let's fix it. No. It is what you are, and the way you are is perfect. All right? So we'll talk more about that, but I want to share with you something that acceptance. Yes, Priyakshi. I was in Thailand in a state of, I went to set some time aside for a deep meditation retreat, similar to what Vipassana is, but in my own way. And during this deep meditation, I started experiencing these thoughts and feelings, and then I get tuned into the synchronicity of the divine. All these terms are just used to describe things that I can't describe with words. Through my heart, and I saw a study that came up on my feed with Deepak Chopra, and Deepak Chopra, I was meditating on these traumas, these patterns, these things that I keep on stopping me from achieving the things that I want to achieve. I feel a sense of I'm not good enough. It's the number one thing for all of us. We're not good enough. You know, why? Who said you're not good enough? Why you feel this way? Right? Why? And all these questions of deep contemplation, like, why do you feel the way that you do? You don't feel strong enough. You don't feel powerful enough. And one of the primary things that men say, this is amazing. Men, one of the things that men want to can overcome, this is surprising to women, fear. Men want to feel fearless. Isn't that amazing? When you think about it, men are supposed to be the brave ones out there. And women don't want to overcome fear. They got it sorted. Most of the men that I speak to, including myself, said, I want to overcome my fears. In other words, my doubts, which is really interesting. So during this state of deep reflection and meditation, I saw this thing that came up with Deepak Chopra. And Deepak Chopra said there was an exercise done, or an experiment done by one of the leading houses, I think it was Harvard, where they took a mouse and they took a mouse, a male mouse and a female mouse, put them into a pen. Okay? In this pen, they put an electrode that would give the mouse a shock every time it would touch this part of the pen. So the mice would go into the pen, go around, when they would touch there, they would get a shock. And the second time round, what would they do? They would avoid the pen, that particular electrode, right? Fair enough. The mouse has an ability to sense traumas and then stop it. They took these mice out, mated them, right? And they had offspring. So they killed these mice out. It was a short life cycle of a mouse. Put the children in there and watched what happens with the children. Well, the children know what to do here. And the children went into the pen and instinctively avoided the electrode. They were like, whoa. So they did that for 7 generations of mice, which happens in a few days. The 7th generation knew to avoid that pain. Now, hello, let's bring something up, right? So when you go into a situation and you find maybe the ideal partner, but you run away because it showed an indication of something that may have resembled something that your ancestors had encountered within their physical being, can you see the relationship? And they did that with cows as well. And apparently we're like 2 or 3 genetic strands, DNA, whatever you call it, mutations away from a mouse. So then we're very similar to a mouse from a DNA point of view, and for the emotional trauma that resides within us. And I was like pins and needles, because it was in my state of meditation and my state of stillness asking for the answers that I saw this study. And that night I went to bed. I woke up, the last dream that I had before waking up in the morning, my father came into my dreams. Now, I was reflecting as I went to bed. I wonder if somehow my dad and my mom and what they went through may have been passed down to me unconsciously, not consciously. And if that's true, then we should identify those patterns and help to overcome them in our families. And I said, yeah, I don't know, it sounds a bit, goofy out there. Then I had a dream, and my father came into my dream. I remember him having a white face, an illuminated face and a square jaw. Now my father had a round face, and I never found his face illuminated because there was issues I was dealing with my father. So the fact that he came in that form meant that my work had been done complete, and that my father's, my healing towards my father that I had to overcome in myself, that was one of my biggest hurdles, was complete in me. It was a sign for me that look at how he came to you. And he came to me with a very warm, loving look. And I said to him, Dad, I had this thought and about the study, and I don't know if it's related to our family, and I don't know if I should do it because they all think I'm nuts anyway, right? Zahra, if you're here, you can relate to this. And I said, I don't know if I should speak to them about this because they'll think I'm all a quack, right? Because I am a quack anyway. They always thought I was a quack anyway. And he said, son, you must do this. And I said, oh. He says, you have to do this. And I said, oh, all right. Well, in that case, I'll do it. He said, but do it on a Saturday, not a Friday. And I went, all right. I still don't know what the answer to that was. I sent a voicemail to my uncle, and my uncle, who is one of the brothers of my father. And I said, I got this dream, and my father has sent me a message. You can call it from a dream. And I know it all sounds so cuckoo, but I'd like to meet with all the uncles. In other words, all my father's brothers, because they've got children, and Zahra is one of the children as well, my cousin. And he said, sure, let's meet up, but it will be on a Friday. I said, all right. And I did, and I told them all this thing. And they were first confused and, totally, bamboozled by what I was saying. And one of my uncles said, we can't judge our ancestors because of the way we are. I said, no, you're not understanding me. I'm not saying we blame them. I'm saying that we have inherited. And then I used examples of how my father was taken for a ride in business all the time, using the example. And his brothers took him for a ride. Yeah, we can call it in a merciful kind of way, but there was some kind of mistrust done in business. Now, I was finding the same patterns that every time I'd go into business, something would happen. Now, is this all random? And then we look at all the feeling in ourselves of depression, feeling like a victim, feeling guilty all the time. Could this have been passed down somehow? And then I met with the lady. So my senior uncle in that whole thing said, no, you're not understanding what he's saying. Rashad, this is important work, you should do it. And I went, oh. And so I started the process very slowly, as most people don't want to do this kind of work. Then I met with a client, a friend of a client. Actually, my client was going to marry this woman. And I said to this woman, so you're going to be marrying my friend. Either way, incredible woman. She said, can I speak to you? And I said, sure. So my friend left us and we spoke. And she was telling me about her past and how she left her husband after being in an abusive relationship for 10 years. And she said, I couldn't take it anymore. And I said, what made you leave? She said, I don't know. My son was 10 and I had enough. And I said, was there something else? Because, I had this dream and all the rest of it. And, the mythological world, which I really relate to. She said, no, nothing else. Anyway, I started telling her about my dad's dream. And she said, well, hold on, wait. And I said, what is it? She says, you know how you said, was there something? There was something. I said, what was it? Now she recalled to me previously, I said to her, was there abuse in your family before your husband? And she said, yes, my mom was abused by her husband. And I said, what about your grandma? She says, and my grandma. And a lot of people don't have connection to they don't even know their grandpas and grandfathers these days. That's how it is. So we don't have that connection. Either way, she's telling me the dream and she says, let me tell you my dream, why I left. My great grandmother came in my dream, standing with my mom and me. And she said, looking at me, my dear, this stops with you. This stops with you. Which is amazing to me.